How's it going, everyone? So we actually just got an update on Packers impending free agent Allen Lazard. If we remember back to week 18 after that Detroit Lions game, when the Green Bay Packers were eliminated from the playoffs, the post-game press conference with Allen Lazard didn't sound too positive in terms of himself wanting to be back in Green Bay. When asked about Aaron Rodgers, he pretty much blew that off and then said he doesn't even know where he's going to be come this next upcoming season, which is true considering he is an impending free agent. But overall, the tone of that press conference just seemed really negative, and it did seem like Allen Lazard was ready to move on. And just a bit ago, we got an update on what Allen Lazard might be looking for in terms of money. We see a tweet here from Big B, and if you guys remember, he's the one who broke the whole Aaron Rodgers thumb actually being broken thing, so definitely is credible here. And it says, according to a source, Allen Lazard is looking for $15 to $17 million a year on the open market, and the Packers haven't been willing to offer more than half of that. Packers are open for a return if he can't find big money elsewhere. And man, Allen Lazard, $15 to $17 million, man, that is way over what I think he is worth. I love Allen Lazard. I'm a big Allen Lazard fan. I'd love for him to stay in the green and gold, but definitely not for $15 to $17 million per year. When I made the video recently about Allen Lazard and then also going into the free agent video, when I was thinking around 10 to 12 million, that was even too much in my opinion. So seeing $15 to $17 million here is just ridiculous. And hey, if another team goes out in free agency and spends that on Allen Lazard, congrats to you, Allen Lazard. Get your money, get your payday. But man, if the Packers were to flip around and sign Allen Lazard to that type of money, I would be pretty furious. And that's nothing against Allen Lazard as a player or a person. It's just for the type of receiver he is in this offense, not worth that $15 to $17 million. If we bring up the receiving stats from last year, Allen Lazard was the Green Bay Packers' leading wide receiver in yards with 788 yards. But if we look in terms of the entire NFL wide receivers and tight ends combined in terms of yardage, that was 39th best in the entire NFL. The Packers did not have a good passing offense this year. Allen Lazard was the true number one wide receiver going into the season after losing Davante Adams, and he really just didn't show up as that. I don't think Allen Lazard can be that true number one guy in your offense. He's a great supplemental wide receiver, a great run blocking receiver, and a pretty clutch receiver on third down, but he's simply just not that true number one wide receiver and certainly couldn't fill the shoes of someone like Davante Adams, which we never really expected. But I kind of thought maybe he'd hit 1,000 yards just because the volume would be there, but that didn't happen either. And also, if you guys remember during the offseason, how long it took Allen Lazard to sign that second round tender. Since he was a restricted free agent entering the 2022 season, the Packers then placed a second round tender on him, which he really had no decision whether or not to sign or not to sign. It took him a while to sign that. It was for the $4 million, fully guaranteed. And it took him a really, really long time to sign that. And I think that's because he probably wanted a long-term extension. And I said this in the previous Allen Lazard video. And the fact that the Packers didn't give that to him because they had no reason to, they would get a one-year Allen Lazard on a pretty cheap deal at $4 million, which was the right move. I think he was annoyed by that. And then going into this offseason, probably wants to test the open market and see what big money he can get. Will it be $15 to $17 million? I highly doubt it, but I do see a team throwing around $10 to $12 million at him. And as we saw in the tweet, it says the Packers haven't offered more than half of that. So it says 15 to 17, so we'll say 16 million. So at that point, that basically says, the Packers haven't offered more than $8 million annually to Allen Lazard, which I'm okay with that because in my opinion, that should be the cap for Allen Lazard. Like if you're paying him 6 to 8 million, somewhere around that mark, I think that's a good deal for someone like Allen Lazard. Christian Watson's going to be the number one wide receiver in this offense if the Packers don't go out and sign another free agent or trade for someone like DeAndre Hopkins. I do expect them to draft a wide receiver, especially if they lose Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb in free agency. They should go out and draft a wide receiver early. But Christian Watson is set up to become a number one wide receiver in this league. He has so much potential. We saw it already in his rookie season. And Allen Lazard shouldn't be getting paid wide receiver one money when Christian Watson can become that. Looking at the wide receiver contracts here, if we sort of average per year, let's say Allen Lazard wants $16 million between that 15 and 17. That puts him on the same stage as Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Kenny Galladay, we're going to forget about here. Christian Kirk, who at the time we thought was a crazy deal and actually, did really well for the Jaguars there. Deontay Johnson, Robert Woods, Hunter Renfrow. A bunch of receivers on this list are number one wide receiver, especially Mike Evans, and have put up big number seasons, whereas Allen Lazard, this was his highest season. Yes, this was his best season, but it's not $16 million Mike Evans money by any stretch. Now, the current wide receiver free agent market is pretty weak. There's guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Jacoby Myers, who Jacoby Myers should get more money than Allen Lazard. Julio Jones, probably should retire. Marvin Jones, DJ Chark, that's one of the better ones in this class. It also shows Michael Thomas here. He is under contract, but I do see the Saints moving on from him, and what he'll get on the open market, I don't know. But yeah, the wide receiver free agent market isn't that good, so I do think a team will go out and sign Allen Lazard for more money than the Packers are willing to offer. I don't think he'll hit that $16 million mark he wants, but I do believe another team will pay more than the Packers are willing to do, just like MVS, who got $10 million last year. But depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, and if, say, they trade him to a team like the Colts or the Raiders and get back someone like Michael Pittman or Hunter Renfrow in the deal and draft compensation, they could already have a replacement in that regard for Allen Lazard. And even if that doesn't happen and Aaron Rodgers comes back for the 2023 season, they could very well draft a wide receiver at pick 15. Quentin Johnston comes to mind. There's Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Zay Flowers, even Jalen Hyatt is flying up boards. But yeah, I'm interested to hear everyone's thoughts down in the comments below. I'm pretty sure 99.9% of us can agree that the Packers should definitely not pay Allen Lazard upwards of $16 million per year. Like I said, I'm right around at that $7 to $8 million mark. If he wanted to agree with that, which it says, they're going to let him test the open market, which is usually what the Packers do, so that makes sense. And if no team offers him anywhere near that, and another team saying offering him $9 million and the Packers are at $8 million, maybe he'll come back to Green Bay. But I don't see the odds that high just based off of what we heard, from him right after that Lions game, and everything so far this offseason has been centered around Aaron Rodgers, and anything that's came out about Allen Lazard hasn't seemed too good in terms of a return to Green Bay. But that about does it for the video. Thank you everyone for watching. If you could leave a like down below to support my channel, catch you on the next one, and as always, go Pack Go.